Welcome to another edition of the Resilient Living Podcast, a show dedicated to improving quality of life for both people and planet through liberation and independence, moving from surviving to thriving and living life on your own terms. All right, I want to talk about gardens today in your front yard. Lawns to gardens is the theme, but I want to know from you guys. I want to do like a whole series on stuff like this, and I want to know from you guys in the comments below. Let me know if this is something that you guys are interested in. Let's jump right in. The very first thing that I want to do is talk about how useless front lawns are. Just quickly, these lawns are used for grass that people hardly ever sit on. They never really spend time outside. Occasional people, I think, do. Mostly the Asians and Latin Mexican communities. You see them out with their lawn chairs and stuff like that. For the most part, though, at least here in the Americas, a lot of people just have this wasted space. Why not turn it into a garden, or at least like a refuge for insects, which is my first note here, is insects, refuge, and decorative looks. Now, we can decorate our front yards and make them look nice if you don't want to grow edibles, and maybe you're not so much allowed to because of the Department of Make You Sad, the building departments and such. So one of the things that we could take in consideration is that if we do have a food backyard going on and we don't have anything in the front, we don't want to put that there for afraid of aesthetics. What we could do is start to design things that attract beneficial insects. So what you're doing is you're utilizing your front yard to bring in, say, butterflies, which I had a job. It was peculiar, I thought. The woman, we did a demo on the construction of her house there, and there was a bunch of debris, and I started to reach under the plants to pull the trash out, and she says, no, don't touch anything, please. That's where all my butterflies are at, the larvae. I said, really? I learned something. If you don't disturb all the foliage underneath the leaves and the mulch and stuff like that, that's where the caterpillars will overwinter. And she says she gets hundreds, if not thousands of them when they do hatch flying around. It's just a beautiful thing to see. So we need pollinators and stuff like that. So you can consider, if you're not going to turn your front lawn into a garden, a edible garden, that you can at least utilize that for habitat for many things, many different types of insects, ladybugs and things like that. You got to do due diligence. Go take a look at your area, YouTube or Google your area of what native beneficial insects that you have and what kind of habitats do they need to live in. I can give you guys for instance, that if you started a small compost pile and you left some holes in this, and I'm not sure if this is around all of the United States, but we have a thing called the black soldier fly, and they'll show up and start to consume any of the compost that you have. And there's little ways of making like little cardboard fixtures that have, the little cells inside the cardboard, right? Where you got the little folds. There's these little holes in there. Well, what's happening is we're making a habitat for the black soldier fly to come in and lay their eggs inside that cardboard piece. So, of course, this is something that you wouldn't want to do in your front yard, but there's multiple other things that you can do where lizards are actually a very good thing to have. And what you can do is you can build up some rock formations, in your front yard, make it look like a dry, waterfall or something, a little landscape where you can actually intentionally make a lot more crevices in areas for them to hide. In the wintertime, they'll go and hibernate, and they'll sleep under these inside these crevices away from predators and things like that. If you have a house cat, which I have cats that visit my home all the time, and they just pretty much massacre all the lizards. It's like there's no chance for them. But I noticed by building little brick structures and things like that with intentionally hard crevices where the cats can't get into, some of the lizards actually survive. So you can do this for birds. You can make little bird houses, decorative bird houses, bat boxes, and things like that. And I think we owe it to nature to give a certain percentage for them to live. They have a right to be here as well, but beyond just because it's the right thing to do and to provide them food, since we've taken over the cities and made nature our slave. We can actually make places for the bees and create flowers and stuff for them to pollinate and stuff like that. And then that's going to do is slowly after the abundance starts and you don't touch anything, you don't move much, you're going to have those insects and those animals moving towards your backyard and giving them a place to actually live. And if everybody did just a small portion of this in their front yards or even in their backyards, can you imagine the rebound that we'd have back in nature? So decorative looks and refuge for animals and wildlife, basically. So the role of biodegradable container gardening, or any kind of container gardening, if you are looking to get decorative and you need to make the front yard look really, really nice, and if you're a renter, of course, as well, not very many landlords, I think, keep up the front yards very nice, in the poor areas of town. But the role of container gardening is that you can swap stuff out. So if you're planting stuff and you've got, like, my biodegradable container gardening systems that I've invented, is just a wire basket made out of wire fencing wrapped with burlap, and as soon as the burlap starts to get wet, it gets discolored and it doesn't look so attractive. But what we can do is we can build ourselves some wood inserts, wood frames for the baskets to be inserted in. But still, if you're growing something that looks like a square patch of dirt, like a box of dirt sitting there on your front porch, or in your planters or wherever, what we could do is we could start growing stuff in our backyard, say like kale and stuff like that, and arugula, and you could wait till actually that container gardening, and again, whatever container you're using, even 5-gallon buckets can be sanded and spray painted made to look like terracotta. I'm fumbling my words today. But what you could do is you can get these things sprouted up to where they get nice and bushy, and you can actually move the containers to your front yard. Now, remember, we did all the habitat for all the pollinators and stuff like that. If you have such plants that need to be pollinated, such as cucumbers, zucchini, tomatoes, and things like that, you can move these as they're blooming to the front. And then once they start to die off, you can move them back into the backyard and finish them off, say like tomatoes. Here, I live in San Diego, California, and the tomatoes will start to dry up and get damaged from the cold. But during their lifespan, if I keep them clipped up and nice and neat, they look really pretty, really pretty. There's lots of greenery. You can get a bucket or a container full of arugula or mint, and you can place that out strategically, set these things up in formations. That's what I like about container gardening, is that it's like Jenga. You can move stuff around and you can configure them into different things, so your front yard's always changing. You can actually grow flowers in containers too. Like, I prefer to do everything that has a use. Like marigolds, regular old marigolds have a use. They attract bees and stuff like that, and they repel gophers and there's a lot of stuff that's purported that it does. But I prefer to have the edibles. So a lot of people don't know that there is actually edible marigolds. Lemon gem, tangerine gem marigolds. They look really pretty. They got these bright orange and yellow stripes on the tangerine gem marigold species. The lemon gem is just this fluorescent yellow, and they're tiny, tiny little flowers, but big and like large abundance of flowers. And you can put these things on salads. You can put them on spring rolls and stuff like that. They're really decorative. Not much of a flavor just by themselves, but they're pretty good. But yeah, there's a lot of decorative things that we can do where we're stacking functions as well. We're using the permaculture principles to where we're giving aesthetics. People who really care are going to look at the front yard and say, oh, wow, look at how beautiful all those flowers are, not even knowing that the nasturtiums, let's just say, that you're growing, that grow in a big old afro, a big bun, right? A big old bushel, that these things are providing decorativeness, aesthetics, so it's aesthetically pleasing to both the owner and the passerby. The animals and insects, mostly the insects, I think, are the bees and butterflies and stuff like that, are going to like to go and suck on the pollen, collect all the pollen there, and that in turn is helping out your garden to attract them, to give them even more food. So we've got many, many things going on here if we just start to get the mentality straight. Moving forward, you got free wood chips. Now, this is again going to be the role of container gardening, and I'll talk about why. But first of all, free wood chips. If you're living in the city and you've got a front lawn and you want to get rid of it, you can, if you went about a foot deep of wood chips. And if you did something like palm fronds and stuff like that, or maybe laid out, say, some cardboard. I have my problems with cardboard. The glues and the inks and stuff like that, it's just not natural to me. I mean, newspaper could take, years to degrade. And I know some people are doing some extra things like inoculating the cardboard with like a mushroom thing that, spores that actually will start eating it, a fungal rather. But if you get by with about a foot of free wood chips and you place that right over your grass, there's a good chance that the majority of the grass and everything is going to die out, and it'll actually work as mulch. You got some green down there. And of course, you got stuff like crabgrass and stuff like that that'll throw runners, but you can easily get this maintainable if you have the time to and the energy to do so. But what's happening here is that if you're able to put a foot of wood chips, and you can get these for free, by the way, just go down to your local tree trimming service companies, Google it, or use the phone book or whatever they've got there, wherever you're residing. Give them all a call. And what they're going to do is they're going to come and dump this stuff probably in your driveway. They're not going to want to back up onto your lawn, so you're going to have to shovel this stuff out. But you can get multiple different types, and you can be specific. That's the one thing I think that you guys might want to be specific. Like, I had the experience of getting wood chips to where they had some acacia thorns, right? Some sort of this, I can't remember the name of the plant, but it's got these thorns that are a good 2 to 3 inches. And I mean, these things are solid, hard wood. And I stepped on a couple of those, stabbed my fingers when working. So make sure you can be specific and say we don't want anything with thorns, or we don't want palm trees if you're afraid of the palm seeds, sprouting palm branches or palm trees up. They're easily, with the foot of mulch though, it's very easy. What happens is the mulch actually softens the dirt, keeps it moist. So as the palm seeds start to sprout, you can just pull them up with relative ease. Unless you let them go too long. But that's something, your front lawn, you can, if it's full of wood chips, you can go out there and you can easily maintain that within, 20 minutes every weekend if you so needed to. But what is the significance of this? First of all, it's free. It's decorative. Sometimes at first when you get it, it may be like a couple shades different of color. But what's going to happen when it all dries up is it's all going to look uniform. It's going to be this nice beige color. You can get yourself some make yourself some like concrete walking pads or something, make some little trails and stuff like that if you want to make it look nice. But you can spread this stuff out, and what's going to happen is that you're going to bring your containers. Now again, no matter what container you have, it should have some drainage holes in it. And what's going to happen is if you start placing these containers in various different places on top of the wood chips, this is going to stop the weeds from getting into your container and messing with the your soil. So you will have to weed a lot less. But what's happening is all the excess moisture that drips off the container, whether it's rain and when you're watering your plants, that's all going to drizzle down through the wood chips down into the ground, into that soft ground where it's protected from the sun. And then guess what's going to happen? You're going to start remineralizing that soil in your front yard. So with the intention, if you wanted to do a beautiful, nice garden-looking front yard, and you had the leeway, the capability of doing this, and also you were allowed to do so, what's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years is you're going to have some of the richest soil on the planet, because you're feeding the microbiology underneath with all the worm castings, compost, and the excess juices that you have coming off your plants. So something to take into consideration. If you don't want to do the whole thing, you can actually do partial areas. And just keep those containers, I says, in rotation. In the wintertime, you can pull everything off, rake up, and maybe dress up some new wood chips just in that little area. Make it all designed. You can make squiggly lines, a round little circle area, like a keyhole garden. Keyholes, when you get down to the center, it's got a line, and you can actually have a whole full 360-degree reach of about, say, 2.5 feet if you did a circle with a pathway right through the center. And it looks just like a key going into a keyhole. And you can dress that little area up, and then once everything's ready, in the springtime, you can go to your backyard, get your starts and your plants all grown up, and take those things and relocate them out back to your front yard for that season. All right, trees to consider. Now, I always see useless trees in front of houses. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. But I have seen some really cool trees, like some olive trees. They look really pretty. They're very durable. They shed a lot, though. There are some problems with shedding with leaves and stuff. Like, to me, that's free compost. But there are things to take in consideration. The problem I have with fruit trees is that like apricots. We had one in one of the houses we were living in, plums and things like that. Actually, we've had fruit trees on our farm where I used to live in South America as well. Another day, another story. But the problem is these fruits come all at once. That's the big problem. Living here in North County, San Diego, when I'm driving down the road, I see people with apple trees. I see them with persimmons. I don't know what the special thing is about persimmons. Why there's so much. But I've seen lots of lemons, lots of limes, rarely avocado trees. But I do see them, believe it or not. Here in California, you guys are probably going to go berserk when you hear this. But I have seen avocado trees with avocados all over the ground. I've done roof service jobs to where the client told me, please get rid of all those avocados. They're in my gutter. They're all over my roof. If you feel free to pick them all off the tree so I don't have to deal with it anymore. I had probably about 255-gallon drums full of avocados. I was giving them away. But yeah, the problem is that the fruit comes all at once. And if you're going to eat apricots, when everything ripens, basically, the majority of it starts to ripen. You get a couple here and there. Mostly at the top where the sun is, it seems like that's where all your fruits like to ripen first. That's if the birds don't get them. But when you do get them, you're probably going to be running to the toilet if you eat a whole entire bag of apricots or plums, and, apples and stuff like that. So there are many things that we can do to remedy this problem. What I'd like to see happen, or what I would advise, is to grow actually some rare, different breeds of plants, like rare ones, because most people are growing the same thing. If you look, it's apples, it's tangerines, orange, lemons, there's a dime a dozen. You'd have to go around your neighborhood and see. But if you're growing some different things, like I have a list here of like moringa, mesquite, date palms. Now, on this note, I would like to say too is that we want to try to plant some trees that aren't going to die. Here's the other problem with trees, is that we get weak species, just like animals, just like vegetables and stuff like that. Nothing that you did wrong most of the time. It's just that it had weak genetics and it died off. The key is if you had a large piece of property, plant as many diverse species that you can, and as many of those species as you can. And whichever ones die, they die, and whichever ones live, live. But the problem with your front yard is you only get one tree, maybe 2 or 3 or 4. That's it. You don't have that much space. So you want to find something that's indigenous to your area. Again, just like we were talking about the insects and stuff like that, and the type of flowers as well. I think I forgot to mention. Any kind of plants that you're going to plant basically in your front yard, let's try to find something that's like drought tolerant, right? And something that's native to that area, like cousin or something like that. So if you find an ordinary breeds, like I just put here, is moringa, which it's the tree of life. If those of you have never heard of it, it's very pretty. It grows really fast. Real minty green leaves with these large pods on them. Moringa, it has all the vitamins and nutrients, supposedly it's said, to sustain human and all living life on the planet. Food consuming life, life that needs food, basically. And it actually has a really good taste. You can when you pick the green shoots, they're actually light, herbally sweet kind of flavor. The seeds, I guess, are edible as well. I'm kind of on the fence about eating seeds. But these are things that a lot of people don't have, and they has very medicinal and nutritional values. And you can grind this stuff into powders and stuff like that. A lot of people don't know that the mesquite tree, if living where I am in very dry conditions, mesquite flowers are actually edible. Date palms, of course, the dates are edible. They're very sweet, and these are things that grow in the desert, in harsh environments. So depending on where you're at, finding those kind of species, but also getting a diversity of stuff that's not so regular. So now, while Bob down the street's growing those apricots that ripen all at once, and he's crapping his pants, and he's got to sit in the bathroom eating so much apricots, you can go and barter and trade and give him some moringa leaves or maybe some dates and stuff like that, things that a lot of people aren't growing, and swap out and go get your fill for the year of your apricots, plums, apples, whatever it is. Make yourself a couple pies and stuff like that, and you don't even have to grow it. Now we have diversity, and we're also creating community. But I think that a lot of people in life generally, which is another talk in and of itself, but it seems like everybody follows the same thing. So we have everybody growing. It's over here super common for citrus. I can't believe in this dry climate too in this area with the water problems we have. But avocados and stuff like this is dime a dozen. Everybody's got them. But the moment that somebody could diversify, now we could all start sharing. And this creates, like I said, a community, a feeling, a purpose. And it lessens the load on everybody. It's just one less thing that you have to do. And it gives you the variety. Who wants to live on the same thing? You know, guys, believe it or not, eating avocados every single day, this is the first time in my life where I was like, okay, I'm kind of bored of avocados now. Not to say I wouldn't, I love them. I have a love affair with avocados, but I'm kind of like, let's try something different. Okay, so moving forward, wild edibles as undergrowth. My first one I have here is mint. And that's not really a wild edible, but I guess it is. I found it in the mountains and by streams and stuff like that. One of the things I think a lot of you guys maybe are this is the olden days when we had a leaky faucet that we didn't want to fix. We never got the time. It just so happened that some mint seeds or somebody had some mint in their garden fell in this area, and because of all the wetness of that drippy faucet, there's just mint exploding out of this area. Now I use mint for everything. I did not know tzatziki, I think it is, the Greek yogurt mix that they put on the gyros and stuff like that. I think it's tzatziki, I can't remember. Anyways, it's basically a cucumber, pulverized cucumbers, drain all the water out, get yourself some Greek yogurt. I used regular yogurt, it actually came out really good. You're going to spice it up with some salt, pepper, lemon, and things like that. And I made it a couple times following recipes, and it just did not taste that great. You know what the secret ingredient was? Was mint. It just set it off. It was spearmint. So spearmint, I use it in everything. Peppermint and spearmint. I make kombucha. One of my favorites is black cherry lime with mint. Guys, if you've never tried this before, holy moly, it is the best thing I've ever tasted. I make my own flavors up, but we use a lot of mint for teas, especially in the rainy seasons and when it's cold. Again, for the tzatziki or tahiki, I guess, whatever the Greek yogurt mix is. Many uses. There's another one. I make teas for the whole entire week by batch cooking on Sundays, and I'll do either green tea, lemon, mint, or I'll just do lemonade, mint for the kids. I make a big giant gallon of this stuff for the whole week, and that's what, instead of giving them sodas, I give them these iced teas and lemonades and things like that. One of my favorites though for the kids is actually a mint lemonade slushy. So instead of giving them Slurpee at 7-Eleven or any of these places here, we whip up some ice in our blender, and I blend up the mint. Basically, put about a cup of water in there, add some sugar, some honey, whatever you're doing. Add your lemon, some lime, and then put the whole mint sprig in there and just blend the whole thing up. It turns into this light green color. Add your ice until it gets pulverized and it gets that Slurpee texture, and then hand that over. So mint basically is after that long rant, is really, really good. It helps to deter mice and things like that, supposedly. I'm kind of on the fence about that. I don't know. But it is, if you've got a leaky faucet, or you could actually modify a drip system on your front of your house, you're going to have abundance. And some of this stuff, sometimes some species will grow in partial shade and stuff like that. But what's going to happen is if you keep a very moist area on your, say, a whole entire length of planter. I've seen some people with, like, say, a 10 by 1 foot brick planter in front of their house. That's right where the water faucet's located. If you put yourself a splitter, a T that goes off to your garden hose, get yourself another T and just put a little piece of drip irrigation right there. For every, say, foot or every 6 inches would probably be better. Some of these things will drip about a gallon per hour. There's all kinds of different sizes and things like that, and you could actually put this on a timer. What'll happen is you'll have the whole entire front of your house full of mint, depending on where you live, year round. And you could add all kinds of different stuff in there, but water like loving plants like watercress, mints, of course, and stuff like that. Down here, now again, you guys would have to Google. I don't have the time to check out every single place in the world and every state and bioclimates and what I do know, though, is that over here I've introduced a thing called match, and it's a corn salad. It's a wild edible from England, and just grows out wild. We got lamb's quarters. You got all kinds of different needle bush. You've got cheeseweed. We've got all kinds of different edibles of wild stuff. But the best wild edibles I've tasted so far is the match corn salad and miner's lettuce. And again, these are native here. So what I've been doing is I've been planting these things in and out of my biodegradable container farm that I have. And what I've got is, because I've been cultivating these weeds, these wild edibles, they're actually just popping up everywhere. So what will happen is I'll have a tomato bush growing, and then I'll get a bunch of mosh corn salad or miner's lettuce growing all along the bottom of it. So now I'm in my same container where I'm harvesting tomatoes. I'm actually getting miner's lettuce and mosh and stuff like that. And you may think that that's robbing the nutrients, but they're very shallow. In fact, they don't need much nutrients. They're wild edibles, right? They're not sitting here needing worm castings and stuff like that. But when you give them worm castings, they just explode. So what happens is you're going to see, like some of my containers, it's just this giant bushel of mosh, or right now I've got the miner's lettuce. Then right through the center, jettisoning up, is going to be a cabbage or a tomato or something like that. So you're stacking functions. We're getting two things from one, but in an edible landscape, if you had planters and stuff like that, and it's called my drop and forget it method. And what happens is things just start to grow by themselves. I've got stuff like celery I let just grow up to flower, and it's got these really tiny seeds. And what's happening is the celery seeds blew in the wind and fell over, and I've got those as well popping up everywhere, underneath, in the shade, wherever they will. I don't really have to do anything. They just come up on their own. So what's happening is I treat these little seedlings like microgreens. When you're going to weed, because these things will get out of control. A lot of the plants, you won't believe, you don't have to really do anything. They just start sprouting through cracks of bricks and everything. But unlike when you were weeding before in your garden or your front yard and throwing stuff away or mowing it over, now you have these edibles. So you can actually reach into each little crevice in between your rose bushes and things like that, pluck these out and actually eat them like a microgreen. So you're getting lunch, you're getting exercise, you're in the sun, you're creating beauty in your front yard, and you're getting a snack. And these things will just proliferate. Dandelion's the same one. I've always wanted to do this. I never really got into it. But the idea is to go and save all the dandelion seeds on my front grass. I started out with a little paper bag, basically a little lunch bag. What you're going to do is you're going to pick it up when it turns into that bright white flower, and you're just going to break that flower inside the bag and keep all those seeds. You're just going to keep filling up these things. You can go down to your neighborhood, down the street to your parks and stuff like that, and just collect dandelions. Dandelions have many, just like many other plants. Dandelion roots are a substitute for coffee. They have many other, I think it has a liver or kidney. I think it was a liver fleshing proponent to it. The green leaves are edible. The flowers are edible. They actually create food for bees and stuff like that to come pollinate. And if they're done right, if you look at this wild weeds, these things I'm talking about, if they were done in a whole planter area, different times of the year, and they're not very tall, they're very close to the ground, the whole entire thing is going to give you greenery. Go and spread those seeds out, during the winter or right before spring, depending on which climate you live in, and then you'll have an entire growth of uniformity, I guess is what I want to say too. So you'll have the dandelions, and if you just looked at it from the street, you wouldn't be able to tell whether that's lettuce, grass, or whatnot. I think you could tell whether it's grass or not. But it would just be this big abundance of these green edibles that you can actually go and eat and harvest, save the roots, dry them up, grind them into powder. You could use them as medicines. We have so many things around us that we actually could utilize and don't really have to fight and try to care for to make it live. And we can have beauty on the planet instead of these square lawns that serve nothing. Right? If you guys do yourselves a favor, the lawns came from the high kings who would have, I think it was in India or something, and he had all his women out there with scissors chopping by hand to create this lawn, this beautiful lawn area, so he can walk over and not get his feet dirty, and just because he could. And then look at us now. What is that serving you? It's emptying out your wallet. It's destroying nature. It's causing pollution. It's just a horrible thing, and you're not even utilizing it. Lawns to gardens, I think, is the answer. Again, guys, I would love to do a series on helping you guys out to turn your front lawn into a garden. I just don't know what everybody's interested in, so I'm just kind of throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. Comment below. Let me know what you guys want to hear about, and I will tailor towards your guys' needs. So, guys, like, subscribe, share. If I brought you guys some value, sharing will definitely help me get the show off the ground. And I guess there's an email. You guys can get a hold of me, Resilientlpodcast at gmail.com. So, guys, as I always say, go out there and have yourself a near life experience. Don't lose your muchness. Carry on the fire. And human up, my friends.